Hello, Mustang fans, and welcome to this special edition of the Mustang Owners Podcast. I'm your host, John Clore. And today, folks, I'm going to get you an inside look as if you had media access to the Detroit Auto Show. And if we had to give you one little phrase of what we would think as Mustang lovers at the big Detroit Auto Show just opening up here in Detroit for the next couple of weeks, we would say the Mustangs go MIA at the Detroit Auto Show press day. And that's basically the case. So for those of you who haven't been to a big auto show, I'm sure a lot of the towns have the big ones. Detroit's been a staple. I've been covering it professionally since 1988 when I first walked in as an editor at AutoWeek magazine. And I can tell you, this is a completely different beast. The Detroit Auto Show now, I remember, when a stampede of cattle were running down Jefferson Avenue in front of Cobo Center back then, or a Jeep was driven through the plate glass window on their introduction. Mustangs would come flying out of the ceiling. There was pageants and marching bands and dancers and the Cirque du Soleil. This was a huge pageantry. 6,000 journalists from all over the world, bumper to bumper, 39 press conferences over 3 days. You couldn't pack it fast enough. The interviews you couldn't get. They were 20 minutes apart. You'd run from place to place. It was crazy. Well, as we got close to COVID, that kind of went away. The auto companies decided that car shows aren't a great place to show your car. Don't ask me how they ever figured that out, because it's the dumbest thing ever. Because everybody in Detroit, whoever grew up in any big city, would go to their big auto show to get in the cars and hop inside, see the cars of 45 different models from all the different makes, and then not a single salesman come up and give you any hassle. You could sit in them all, check them all out in one place in one day, and then go out to dinner. It was a great thing. But today, as we walked into Media Day at the Detroit Auto Show, first thing I could notice is, for one thing, there's hardly anybody wearing a wristband for a media wristband. You didn't need them anymore. Now just your media card got you in, your credential that they sent you, which tells me that they're going to be a little less policing, because so many people would try to sneak in to see the product launches. So today I walked in, didn't need a wristband, had my media badge from carsandcontext.com, and I said, okay, we're going to make this happen. Of course, where would I walk in? I would walk in at the Ford booth, and as you can see, there was a big sign, "There's always a faster horse. Ready, set, Ford," with our new logo. What bothered me was the horse that was shown is an electric horse. It's the Mach-E. And, if you're going to talk about our legacy goes back more than just a couple of years with an EV. It goes back, at least with the Mustang's case, now pushing 62 years. So I thought, that's going to be, maybe that'll set the tone. And folks, as I walk through, I don't want to sound like Clint Eastwood. Get off of my lawn. The old guy talks about how it used to be at the Detroit Auto Show. But let me tell you, usually I'd run into 30 or 40 journalists that we've been down the road with in Detroit for 100 years, all the Ford PR people, all the other PR people from all the other OEMs were there. But no, very scant, a lot of bloggers and vloggers. Some of them look like you couldn't buy them a beer legally. So I decided just to roam around the Ford booth and find the Mustangs. So first thing I did is I said, let's go beyond these Mach-E's, because whether you consider that a SUV or a Mustang, that's totally up to you. But the first thing I could find on the floor was, my eyes were drawn to a white RTR. And I said, oh, wow, we've got a Mustang on the main Ford floor. Beautiful car. It's nice to see a GT, and it's all its glory. It's got the beautiful stripes, and people were walking around it. But this is the one on the raised platform. You see a white brand new 2026 Mustang, and where I just didn't see the crowds around it. Where is the excitement? And a lot of excitement, where I'll show you in a second, a little not too far away from this white Mustang. And I said, there's got to be another one. I just walked around and I said, there's got to be more than just one Mustang on the show floor. Where were all the people? Well, they were over buying Ford merch, shirts and hats and polos and tees. And I saw a little bucket there where you can get a Bronco camp chair. It looked like the kind of ones you'd get at Walmart, but this one was really overpriced. It wasn't for a big guy, but everybody was slinging. I mean, these are journalists, don't forget. This isn't media day for people off the street, but this place was packed. There were more people in the Ford merch spot in the Ford display than I could see around any particular car. Just the way it went. Anyway, so finally I came across, and I said, finally, I've got another Mustang. I got an RTR now. I got some beautiful blue GT. I said, I want to see RTRs and I want to see Mustang GTs, but is that it? 2 Mustangs at the entire Ford display, which probably took up, I don't know, a fifth of the entire floor at Huntington Place. 2 brand new Mustangs is all you could get. And as I walked by this beautiful blue car, I realized no one was around it either. I mean, no one's talking to anyone. There was anybody to talk to. So for the media day, if you were interested in seeing a new Mustang or talking about what the latest in the Mustang world, that was it. A blue one, a white one, and a lot of people standing around over at the merch store, maybe talking about expeditions. Now, don't get me wrong. The whole truck area was full. If you were interested in an Explorer Tremor, tons of people looking at that. If you were interested in a Bronco, OMG. So I did see the Ford Racing, one of the Ford Racing Bronco items. Right by that Ford Racing Bronco, they had some of the stuff they showed the night before, on the Tuesday night before the auto show, when Ford revealed that they're going to have a new Bronco variant, and it's going to be, of course, an RTR Bronco. A lot of people say, oh, it's going to be the Gladiator Fighter, and, Ford said we are going to come out with another Bronco later in the year, but it was the RTR last night, and I went over to the Ford stand, and where were all the Bronco people? They were hanging around the Expedition, around the Lobo, and they were all in line. All these are media types. All these people were in line to go drive the Broncos in the little drive center. They set up a little center where they had an incline and some rock crawl and a little steel mountain that they drive with all the doors off. And this many people were interested in driving a Bronco in a little section the size of a small parking lot. And was that cool? Maybe it is. So I was determined to keep searching. There had to be more than 2 Ford Mustangs at the Detroit Auto Show. So what did I do? I started looking, well, where's the RTR booth? Where is RTR? Where are they? And sure enough, around the corner, behind the Bronco Mountain, there was the RTR trailer. Now, they had 4 cars there. They had every variant they had. They had a couple of wild colors. And I finally said, well, why are 4 Mustangs here? RTR has 4 cars, and Ford only has 2 cars. I said, that just is wild to me. And I walked around, and there was a lot of people there. They were talking about the cars that were on display there. And like I said, they had their special colors on display. They had the Jet Fighter Gray. They had that really cool, it looked like a wrap color with that lime green fade. That thing drew a lot of attention. Car was really, it's almost like iridescent, I would call it. And then, of course, they had their Mystic Chrome. They had a nice little display, and it was pretty busy. Of course, the big wing car got all the looks, which is fine. If you want a stage 3, I get it. But it was odd to me that they weren't there. So I said, where's the rest of the Ford stuff? Well, there was a drive area behind RTR, and I went to the Ford tent, and guess who was in it? Nobody. So the Ford cars were apparently not yet out on the little test track they had, and I saw as it went by a Dodge Charger. It went by. So apparently Stellantis had some cars there and some of the imports people, but there were no Ford people there. And I thought, first of all, you wouldn't want to put a Mustang back there because if it'd be basically driving a Mustang as far as you could in your strip mall parking lot. And what's the thrill of that? There was speed limited to 5 miles an hour. And so if this is the new way to experience a car, I don't get it. To me, just driving that was not cool. But as I said, well, where are the cars? And where is the car of the year? Well, the car of the year, folks, sorry to hear you, is a Dodge Charger. So I went over to this beautiful candy apple red Charger. They had they were doing interviews next to the car. It won the North American Car of the Year award. The styling on the new Dodge Charger is phenomenal. Looks like it came right out of 1970. But I thought to myself, it's a shame that the only car that Ford Motor Company makes right now is the Mustang. But we didn't get any buzz off that car. What did we get for us being there? Well, the one car that caught my eye was a prototype Kia. And I thought to myself, if Ford was going to build if we're going to do a 4-door Mustang, or we're going to build another car someday, wouldn't it be cool to do a shooting brake, or as they call it in Europe, or in the down under, the 4-door Ute, the utility vehicle? This is like a small sexy, fast-looking station wagon. It said prototype on the door. You could be an EV, it could be a gas car. The styling was off the charts. And I kept thinking to myself, Kia was getting some buzz about these cars, and they did have a prototype on the floor. That's what the auto shows were all about, seeing the future, not seeing the past. But what really got my eye, of all the Mustangs there, well, Vanguard Motor Sales showed up, and they brought out of their all their consignment cars some absolutely beautiful 428 Cobra Jet Mustang, Honolulu blue, just gorgeous. And I walked by and I thought, all this heritage, all this wonderful Mustangness, and we're not celebrating it there. As I walked through the Detroit Auto Show and said, well, if that was it, I think the whole legacy of Mustang, the brand, the love that we have for this car was not on display here. Now, let me give you one little tip. So you might be in a Mustang club, hopefully you are, or at least in a Mustang group when you go to your Cars and Coffee. Well, guess who was invited to the Detroit Auto Show? Nope. Not the 50-year-old Mustang Club that's got 1,600 Mustangs in it and 800 members. It was Mata Detroit, which is a young Instagram-based group from guys all over the Detroit area who run anything from supercharged Audi race cars to Hondas with fart pipes. I mean, it's basically that. And they said, well, I said, where are these guys? I'll go look at the old cars. And they were downstairs at Huntington Place, which is a shame because they should have been upstairs. But then again, I went to go look at them, and they said, nope, you media guys can't get in unless you get your hand stamped. I said, okay, where do you get your hand stamped? Well, they're not here right now. All right. So did I want to see some young Instagrammer car club wannabes tell me about the hobby or the legend of Mustang and some of the iconic cars of the past? Did I want that kind of a club footprint? I would say no. And in closing, I can just tell you this. A couple of years ago, Thomas Victory, who's the president of the Victory 7 Mustang Club out in Richmond, Virginia, had invited me to go see the Motor Trend car show in Richmond. And I went to, guess what I did? I walked into that show, and I saw right out in front in the lobby, all of the member cars. They picked maybe 30 of them. As you walked into the car show, you walked through Mustang history. And it was packed. I mean, that place probably had as many. I mean, you couldn't walk past those Mustangs without stopping before you went into the car show to see the new cars. And I thought to myself, that's really why we're kind of missing the Mustang excitement. Do we have a big news this year? Yeah, people may have heard this, the rumor about a supercharged dark horse. Ford's going to do a hypercar announcement tomorrow. But when it comes to the legacy, the only car left at the company, what are we not doing? We're not celebrating its legacy. And really today at the auto show, I missed that. I missed the whole excitement. I mean, from 1988 when I first walked in there to see the Fox bodies and see every year Mustang was something. And now it's Bronco. So for those of you that have a Mustang and a Bronco, you're going to enjoy the auto show. A lot of Bronco news. There was, I was on WTVN 610 in Columbus the other day, and we were talking about the auto show. And I said the night before we had a little Bronco party at Michigan Central Station. I hope you watched our episode of the Cars at the Station on our YouTube channel. And of course, that's where the Broncos were the night before the auto show. And they had a lot of those little tents that pop up at the back of the truck. And they said, why are so many people camping in their Broncos? I said, well, it's probably because we're all going to go broke trying to make our car payments on the new cars. We'll be sleeping in our cars. So, yeah, we had some word. The president came to town. We had some word that Ford may be thinking of building some lower cost, some more affordable cars and trucks coming down the pike. But that's 2028, 2029, 2030. But for right now, the Mustangs are MIA on press day. And that was kind of a disappointment for me. But if you love off-roading, the Jeeps were there. Everybody with and even the SUV crown, it went to the Palisades. Yes, it's a Korean SUV. Kind of looks like a running brick with lights all over it, and it's got theater seating in it, I suppose, or I don't know, executive seating in it, and they thought it was the SUV of the year. So things have changed in the Mustang world, but don't let that discourage you, because guess what? Our new changes coming to the Mustang Owners Podcast. We're going to celebrate the legacy of this car. We're going to celebrate the cars that you have and drive and are proud of. We're going to have way more fun doing the wonderful things that made Mustang awesome. It made Mustang unique. And hopefully we'll get to a point in Ford's future that we can celebrate the greatest little car that ever came down the pike, the Ford Mustang. Well, I hope you enjoyed this little preview of Media Day at the Detroit Auto Show. And make sure you keep hitting that subscription button. We want to get to 1,000 as fast as we can. And also give us a like. And we have paid attention to the last episode where you're telling us all these great ideas. We're going to make this podcast yours, and you're going to love every single minute of it. So thanks for joining us tonight. I'm just guessing next time I'll have to catch you guys down the road.